Let's start with something most people hate about themselves: overthinking. You replay conversations, you analyze decisions, you think about things that haven't even happened yet. And most of the time, you've probably been told to just stop thinking so much. But here's the part no one tells you. Overthinking is not always a weakness. In many cases, it's a sign of high cognitive processing. Studies in neuroscience show that people with higher IQ tend to have more active default mode networks. That's the part of your brain responsible for introspection, imagination, and simulation. In simple terms, your brain is constantly running scenarios. You're not just thinking, you're simulating reality. That's why small decisions feel heavy. Your brain is not seeing one option, it's seeing 10 possible outcomes. But here's the problem. If you don't control it, overthinking becomes paralysis. So high IQ people don't eliminate overthinking. They structure it. Instead of letting thoughts run randomly, they give it boundaries. They ask, what's the decision I need to make? What are the top 2 outcomes? What action can I take right now? That's the shift, from endless thinking to directed thinking. If you relate to overthinking, your takeaway is simple. Don't try to stop thinking. Learn to close loops. Now let's talk about something that looks weird from the outside. Talking to yourself. You've probably done this, explaining things out loud, rehearsing conversations, arguing with imaginary people, and sometimes you stop mid-sentence thinking, what am I doing? Here's what's actually happening. When you talk to yourself, you're activating multiple brain systems at once: language, memory, and reasoning. This process is called externalized cognition. In simple words, you're turning thoughts into structure. Research shows that people who talk to themselves often perform better in tasks that require focus and memory, because thinking silently is messy, but speaking forces clarity. High IQ individuals use this unconsciously. They explain things to themselves. They break problems down verbally. They literally hear their thinking. That's why many smart people don't just think fast. They think clearly. Your takeaway here is practical. Next time you're stuck, don't just sit there thinking. Explain the problem out loud like you're teaching someone else. You'll notice something immediately. Your confusion starts organizing itself. Now here's a habit that people misunderstand the most: enjoying being alone. Let's be clear. This is not about being antisocial, it's about mental preference. High IQ individuals often prefer solitude because it reduces noise. Not just external noise, but mental noise. When you're around people constantly, your brain is processing conversations, reactions, expectations. That consumes cognitive energy. But when you're alone, your brain gets space. Space to think, space to connect ideas, space to go deeper. That's why many highly intelligent people don't seek constant stimulation. They seek mental clarity. There's also research showing that people with higher intelligence report higher satisfaction with less social interaction compared to others. Not because they dislike people, but because they're already engaged internally. If your mind is always active, you don't need constant external input. But here's the balance. Solitude should recharge you, not isolate you. If you're using it to avoid life, that's a problem. If you're using it to sharpen your thinking, that's a strength. Your takeaway: spend intentional time alone. Not scrolling, not distracting yourself, but actually thinking, writing, or reflecting. That's where clarity builds. Now, let's move to something subtle: curiosity that doesn't switch off. High IQ people are not just knowledgeable. They are relentlessly curious. They question everything. Why does this work? What happens if I change this? Is there a better way? And most importantly, they don't accept information at face value. This is where metacognition comes in. Thinking about thinking. They don't just learn things. They analyze how they learn. For example, instead of saying, I don't understand this, they ask, which part don't I understand? Is it the concept, the example, or the application? That level of questioning changes everything. Because now learning becomes targeted, not random. This is why some people learn faster, not because they're magically smarter, but because they're aware of their own thinking process. If you've ever felt like you question things too much, that's not a flaw. That's a sign of a curious mind. Your takeaway: don't just consume information. Break it down, ask better questions, because better questions lead to better understanding. Now, the fifth habit: emotional awareness. This one surprises people. When we think of intelligence, we think of logic. But high IQ individuals often have strong emotional intelligence too. Not always in the social charm sense, but in self-awareness. They notice patterns in their own behavior. They can tell when they're distracted, when they're avoiding something, when they're mentally drained. And this awareness gives them control, because you can't improve what you don't notice. Research in psychology shows that intelligence is not just about problem solving, it's also about self-regulation, managing your attention, managing your reactions, managing your habits, and that comes from awareness. For example, instead of saying, "I'm lazy," they think, "I'm avoiding this task." Why? Instead of "I can't focus," they think, "What's draining my focus?" That shift turns vague frustration into actionable insight. Your takeaway: start observing yourself like a third person, not judging, just noticing. Because awareness is the first step to control. Now here's the part that ties everything together. If you noticed, none of these habits look like genius from the outside. They don't look impressive. Overthinking, talking to yourself, being alone, questioning things, analyzing your own behavior. In fact, most of these are things people try to fix. But in reality, they are raw traits of a high-functioning brain. The difference is not in having these habits, it's in how you use them. Overthinking can either trap you or help you make better decisions. Talking to yourself can feel weird or become your clarity tool. Solitude can isolate you or sharpen your thinking. Curiosity can distract you or accelerate your learning. Self-awareness can make you overcritical or make you unstoppable. That's the real difference. High IQ is not about having a perfect brain. It's about managing a powerful one. So if you've ever felt like your mind is too active, like you think too much, like you don't fit into the usual patterns, there's a good chance you're not behind. You're just not using your brain the right way yet. And that's fixable. Start small, pick one habit from this video, just one, and apply it consciously. Because intelligence is not just something you have, it's something you train. And here's one final thought to leave you with. Your brain is always working, always thinking, always processing, always adapting. The real question is, what are you training it to do? Because whether you realize it or not, you are shaping your intelligence every single day. If this video helped you see your mind a little more clearly, consider subscribing to Simple Ways of Life. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and more importantly, it gives us the push to keep creating practical, useful videos like this for you.